The quantum steel doors of the Galactic Academy's premier lecture hall whispered open as Professor Sarah Chen strode in, her footsteps echoing with purpose across the polished crystalline floor. 300 pairs of alien eyes, some compound, some bioluminescent, others existing in spectrums humans couldn't perceive, tracked her movement with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "Today," she announced, activating the holographic display with a casual gesture, "we'll discuss why the Galactic Council classifies Earth as a Level 9 biological hazard zone." A ripple of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses, the alien equivalent of derisive laughter, swept through the audience. From the front row, a massive figure rose to its full 4-meter height. Zixtal, Crown Prince of the Meridian Empire, flexed his crystalline exoskeleton, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the ceiling. "Professor," he said, his translator struggling to convey the full extent of his condescension, "surely there's been some mistake. Earth hasn't even achieved full solar system colonization." Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that had preceded numerous academic careers being destroyed. "Tell me, Your Highness, what's the tensile strength of your exoskeleton? It's quite impressive, even by Meridian standards, isn't it?" Zixtal's pride swelled visibly, causing his bioluminescent patches to pulse bright orange. "My personal armor is enhanced with quantum crystalline matrices. It can withstand direct hits from plasma weapons. Nothing short of a stellar core could breach it." "Fascinating." Sarah tapped her datapad, and a hologram shifted to display a microscopic image. "This is Latrodectus mactans, commonly known as the southern black widow spider. Length, approximately 1.5 centimeters. Weight, less than a gram." She paused, letting the image rotate. "Its venom contains alpha-latrotoxin, a neurotoxin that, in its natural form, can eat through standard quantum crystalline matrices in approximately 30 seconds. The lecture hall fell silent. Zixtal's bioluminescence dimmed slightly, but his posture remained defiant. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports indicate Earth's weapons are primarily kinetic and nuclear-based." "Those are just our obvious weapons," Sarah corrected, advancing to the next slide. "Earth evolved as what xenobiologists call a chemical warfare planet. Every species on our world has spent billions of years in an evolutionary arms race, developing increasingly potent toxins and corresponding resistances. That spider I showed you, it's not even in our top 100 most venomous species." A student near the back, a gaseous being contained within a sophisticated environmental suit, raised an appendage. "But Professor, if Earth is so dangerous, why isn't it quarantined?" "Because," Sarah said, her smile widening, "we humans learned to thrive there. We didn't just survive our death world. We mastered it. Every toxin, every venom, every biological weapon that evolution could throw at us became a tool in our arsenal." Zixtal's crystalline hands clenched, producing a sound like grinding diamonds. "These are merely theories. I demand practical demonstration." The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees as Sarah's smile took on a predatory edge. "Are you suggesting a field test, Your Highness? Because the Academy's Arachnid Research Facility is always looking for volunteers." "I volunteer," Zixtal declared, his pride overwhelming his better judgment. "Let your tiny Earth creatures try to breach my armor. When they fail, perhaps the Council will reconsider Earth's classification." Sarah tapped her datapad one final time, bringing up the necessary forms. "Very well. Though I should warn you, the last time a Meridian Prince visited our research facility, he had to be evacuated in a quantum stasis field." She glanced up, meeting Zixtal's compound eyes. His exoskeleton didn't so much break down as dissolve. The class erupted in nervous chittering as Zixtal signed the waiver, his crystalline appendage leaving glowing marks on the datapad. Sarah watched him with the patient expression of a spider in its web, knowing the trap was already sprung. "Class dismissed," she announced. "Zixtal, please remain behind to schedule your practical demonstration. The rest of you might want to update your medical insurance before next week's session. We'll be discussing box jellyfish. As the alien students filed out, many giving Zixtal a wide berth, Sarah began preparing the necessary paperwork. Sometimes, she reflected, the best way to teach galactic biology was to let arrogance collide with reality. And Earth's reality had 8 legs, multiple eyes, and a tendency to remind overconfident aliens why humanity's homeworld had earned its fearsome reputation. The Terran Arachnid Research Complex loomed before the small group, its reinforced walls stretching deep into the Australian bedrock. Zixtal stood at the entrance, his crystalline armor glinting in the harsh sunlight, trying to suppress a shiver that threatened to crack his outer layers. Something about this place felt wrong. "Welcome to TARC," Professor Chen announced, pressing her palm against the biometric scanner. The largest collection of arachnid species and their derivatives in the known galaxy, also home to humanity's most advanced venom research program. "It looks more like a fortress than a laboratory," whispered Mira X, a floating collective of bioluminescent particles who had insisted on accompanying them as an independent observer for the Galactic Science Council. "That's because it is." Dr. Chen led them through a series of airlocks, each more secure than the last. When you're working with compounds that can dissolve through quantum-hardened materials, you take containment seriously. A young human scientist met them in the decontamination chamber, her hazmat suit bearing more warning symbols than Zixtal's universal translator could process. "Dr. Chen, the Nephila specimens just produced another batch of enhanced silk. We're seeing tensile strengths that make carbon nanotubes look like wet paper." "Excellent work, Dr. Puddle. Our guest here believes Earth's wildlife poses no significant threat to modern armor systems. Perhaps we should start with the Golden Orb Weaver demonstration." Zixtal flexed his crystalline appendages, producing a sound like chiming bells. "I came to test my armor against your most lethal specimen, not to watch your primitive silk makers." Both human scientists exchanged glances that made Mira X's particles cluster anxiously. "Very well," Dr. Chen said, leading them deeper into the facility. "Though I should mention, that primitive silk is what we use to contain our more aggressive specimens. Nothing else has proven reliable enough." They entered a vast chamber filled with sealed habitats. Each contained what appeared to be miniature ecosystems, perfectly maintained to house creatures so small Zixtal had to adjust his optical sensors to even perceive them. "This," Dr. Chen gestured to a particularly reinforced enclosure, "is where we keep our modified Sydney funnel web spiders. Unlike their natural cousins, these have been selectively bred for enhanced venom production. One drop can eat through standard starship hull plating." "Impossible," Zixtal declared, though his voice carried less certainty than before. No organic compound could generate that level of molecular disruption. Dr. Patel pulled up a holographic display showing molecular structures that made even Mira X's scientific subroutines stutter. Earth's spiders didn't evolve in isolation. They've been in a chemical arms race with their prey, their predators, and each other for hundreds of millions of years. What you're seeing isn't just venom. It's the distilled essence of evolutionary warfare. Each species developed increasingly sophisticated toxins," Dr. Chen continued, "while their targets developed better defenses. The arms race never stopped, never reached equilibrium. Earth's biology isn't just dangerous, it's actively hostile." Zixtal studied the nearest habitat, where a tiny black spider sat motionless in an intricately woven web. "You expect me to believe that creature poses a threat to modern technology. My armor incorporates defensive systems developed by the finest minds in the Meridian Empire." "The Meridian Empire," Dr. Patel noted dryly, "which evolved on a world where the most dangerous natural toxin is roughly equivalent to Earth's table salt." She tapped a few commands into her datapad. "Would you like to see our test footage?" The holographic display shifted to show a piece of armor plating that looked remarkably similar to Zixtal's exoskeleton. A single drop of clear liquid fell onto its surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the material began to bubble, its crystalline structure breaking down at the molecular level. That was diluted to 1/10 strength, Dr. Chen added helpfully. Standard safety protocols. We haven't used full-strength venom since the incident. Mira X's particles swirled in distress. What incident? Classified, both scientists said simultaneously. Zixtal's bioluminescent patches had dimmed considerably, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. My armor's defensive systems are active, not passive. They would neutralize any such attack. Interesting hypothesis, Dr. Chen said, reaching for a sealed container. Shall we test it? Before Zixtal could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights pulsed as security doors slammed shut. Dr. Patel's face went pale as she checked her monitors. We have a containment breach in Section 7, she announced. The Brazilian wandering spiders are loose. How many? Dr. Chen demanded, already moving toward an emergency equipment locker. All of them. Mira X's particles scattered in panic before being pulled back together by their containment field. Zixtal activated his armor's full combat systems, the crystalline surface humming with defensive energy. Well, Your Highness, Dr. Chen said, tossing him a specialized containment unit. Looks like you'll get your practical demonstration after all. Just remember, if you see something moving, don't assume your armor will protect you. These spiders don't need to bite to kill. As if to emphasize her point, a skittering sound echoed through the ventilation system above them. Something was moving in the walls. Many somethings. And they were getting closer. Full facility lockdown initiated, announced the AI system. Its calm voice a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around them. All personnel proceed to designated safe rooms. This is not a drill. Dr. Chen quickly donned her reinforced hazmat suit, her movements precise and practiced. Listen carefully. Brazilian wandering spiders are aggressive, highly mobile, and their venom contains a neurotoxin that can penetrate most standard protective gear. Zixtal, your armor might buy you some time, but don't count on it. A dark shape dropped from the ceiling, landing with impossible grace on a nearby console. Zixtal's combat systems automatically targeted it, a spider no larger than his smallest digit, its legs spanning barely 10 centimeters. Don't move, Dr. Patel whispered, slowly reaching for her containment device. They react to sudden movements. Zixtal's pride overrode his caution. This is the threat you fear. Watch his eye. No, both scientists shouted, but it was too late. Zixtal activated his armor's energy field, sending a pulse of defensive energy toward the spider. The creature didn't just dodge, it launched itself directly at him, moving faster than his targeting systems could track. It landed on his crystalline armor, and immediately his sensors began screaming warnings. Molecular disruption detected, his armor's AI announced. Outer layer integrity compromised. Secondary defenses engage. Dr. Chen grabbed a specialized containment field generator. The venom isn't just corrosive, it's adaptive. The more your defenses try to neutralize it, the faster it evolves to counter them. More spiders emerged from the shadows, their movements coordinated with an intelligence that sent chills through Zixtal's crystalline form. His armor's energy field crackled as it tried to repel the chemical assault, but where one drop of venom had touched, the pristine surface was already beginning to cloud. Fascinating, Mira X commented from the safety of their containment field. The venom appears to be using your armor's own energy signature to catalyze its molecular breakdown process. The more power you feed into your defenses, the faster they fail, Dr. Patel finished. That's why traditional energy shielding is useless against Earth's biological weapons. You can't brute force your way through evolutionary adaptation. Zixtal watched in horror as his supposedly impenetrable armor began to pit and crack. Impossible. This technology has defended against plasma weapons, quantum disruptors. All known weapons, Dr. Chen interrupted, carefully maneuvering around the growing spider swarm. But Earth's life forms don't play by the rules of conventional warfare. They've spent billions of years learning to kill things that were trying very hard not to die. Another spider landed on Zixtal, and this time he felt a sensation he'd never experienced before. Pain. His armor wasn't just failing. It was being systematically dismantled at the molecular level. Secondary containment failing, his AI warned. Tertiary systems compromised. Emergency protocols initiated. Dr. Chen finally managed to activate the containment field, trapping the nearest spiders in bubbles of suspended animation. Dr. Patel, get the neurotoxin neutralizers. Mira X, contact emergency services. Zixtal, try not to move. Movement speeds up the molecular breakdown process. As the humans worked to contain the situation, Zixtal stood frozen, watching his invincible armor dissolve under the assault of creatures smaller than his optical sensors. His entire understanding of warfare, of technological supremacy, was being undone by the evolutionary products of a primitive world. There's a reason, Dr. Chen said softly as she worked, that humanity never focused on energy shields or crystalline armor. On Earth, the most dangerous things aren't the ones that hit hardest. They're the ones that find the smallest weakness and exploit it completely. We learned that lesson through millions of years of evolution. Zixtal's armor was now more holes than protection, his supposedly superior technology reduced to crystalline slag by the defensive chemicals of creatures that hadn't even achieved sentience. In that moment, he finally understood why Earth was classified as it was, not because of its human inhabitants, but because of what those humans had survived to become what they were. Emergency decontamination protocol engaged, announced the facility AI. Please remain still for chemical neutralization. As the emergency systems activated and the remaining spiders were gradually contained, Zixtal made a mental note to update the Meridian Empire's assessment of Earth. Any world that could produce such effective biological weapons by accident was not to be underestimated. And he still hadn't seen their engineered specimens. The decontamination chamber hummed as streams of specialized neutralizing agents washed over Zixtal's deteriorating armor. What had once been a masterpiece of Meridian engineering now resembled a half-melted ice sculpture, crystalline sections, drooping and crackling with each movement. Initial decontamination complete, Dr. Patil announced, studying readings on her tablet. Though I'm detecting residual molecular degradation in sectors 7 through 12, the venom appears to have established a self-sustaining reaction chain. Remarkable. Mira X observed, their particle cloud forming complex mathematical patterns. These spiders have effectively weaponized entropy itself. Each molecular bond they break catalyzes the breakdown of surrounding materials. Dr. Chen nodded, carefully collecting samples from Zixtal's ruined armor. That's what makes Earth's venoms so effective. They don't just destroy, they cascade. One drop can trigger a chain reaction that continues long after the initial contact. Zixtal remained uncharacteristically silent, watching as pieces of his invincible armor sloughed off like shed skin. His neural processors were still struggling to accept the reality of what had happened. How? He finally managed, his voice modulator crackling. How did you humans survive evolving alongside such creatures? We adapted, Dr. Chen said simply. When you live on a world where everything is trying to kill you, you either develop countermeasures or you die. Humanity chose the former. A thunderous boom echoed through the facility, causing everyone to freeze. Dr. Patel rushed to a monitoring station, her face paling. The containment breach is spreading. The wandering spider's venom has compromised the structural integrity of 3 more habitats. We have... Oh no. What? Mira X's particles clustered anxiously. What's loose now? Sydney funnel web spiders, Dr. Patel whispered. And they're headed this way. Dr. Chen's professional demeanor cracked slightly. The enhanced ones. All of them. The facility's AI chose that moment to make an announcement that chilled even Zixtal's crystalline blood. Warning. Experimental specimen containment failure detected. Hybrid venom strains detected in ventilation system. This facility will self-destruct in 10 minutes to prevent contamination of surrounding areas. Hybrid strains, Zixtal asked, dreading the answer. Remember how I mentioned we've been studying spider venoms? Dr. Chen said, already moving toward an emergency exit. Some of our specimens have been selectively enhanced, bred to combine the most effective elements of different species' chemical warfare capabilities. A skittering sound echoed through the walls, different from before, more purposeful, hungrier. The funnel webs are apex predators, Dr. Puddle explained as they hurried through the corridors. Highly aggressive, with venom specifically evolved to target large prey. The wandering spiders may have damaged your armor, but these... She didn't need to finish. Through the facility's transparent walls, they could see dark shapes moving with terrible purpose. Each spider was barely the size of a human thumb, but they moved with the confidence of apex predators that knew their place in the food chain. 7 minutes to self-destruct. The AI reminded them pleasantly. Our emergency protocols were designed assuming our enhanced specimens would remain safely contained, Dr. Chen admitted. No one expected them to encounter armor like yours, Zixtal. The molecular breakdown caused by the wandering spider's venom has created microscopic gaps in the facility's protective barriers, gaps through which more aggressive specimens could escape, Mira X concluded, their particles swirling in agitation. A spider appeared before them, its multiple eyes reflecting the emergency lights. Unlike its wild cousins, this one's exoskeleton bore subtle modifications, the result of careful genetic engineering. It raised its front legs, displaying fangs that gleamed with something far deadlier than natural venom. Nobody move, Dr. Chen whispered. That's Subject Alpha, the first successful hybrid. Its venom contains elements from 17 different species, specifically engineered to bypass modern defensive systems. The spider took a step forward, its movements displaying an unnatural intelligence. Zixtal's remaining armor sensors screamed warnings about chemical signatures unlike anything in their database. They were about to discover exactly why Earth's biology labs were built like fortresses, and why some experiments were never meant to escape containment. 5 minutes to facility self-destruct, the AI announced with unwavering calm. All personnel please evacuate immediately. Have a nice day. Subject Alpha remained motionless, its engineered intelligence clearly calculating odds and trajectories. Behind it, more enhanced specimens emerged from the shadows, their movements synchronized with disturbing precision. Dr. Chen, Zixtal whispered, his voice modulator barely functioning through his degraded armor. Exactly how intelligent are these specimens? Intelligent enough to understand they're trapped, she responded, slowly reaching for something in her hazmat suit's pocket, and intelligent enough to know their only escape route is through us. The hybrid spiders moved as one, forming a semicircle that cut off their escape route. What remained of Zixtal's armor sparked and crackled, still being eaten away by the previous venom exposure. Mira X's particle field contracted in terror, their usual luminescence dimmed to a frightened glow. 4 minutes to self-destruct. Dr. Patel's hands flew across her tablet. The primary evacuation route is cut off. Secondary routes are compromised. We need options, fast. There's one option, Dr. Chen said quietly, pulling out what looked like a small silver sphere, but you're not going to like it. Subject Alpha tensed, recognizing the device. The other spiders backed away slightly, their enhanced instincts sensing danger. Is that? Dr. Patel's eyes widened. Prototype phononic dispersal device, designed to disrupt the molecular structure of enhanced venom compounds. Dr. Chen's finger hovered over the activation switch. Unfortunately, it's not exactly selective about what molecular structures it disrupts. Zixtal's neural processors quickly calculated the implications. It would destroy the spider's venom, along with any complex molecular structures in range, Dr. Chen confirmed, including your armor, Mira X's containment field, and quite possibly large portions of our own cellular structure. 3 minutes to self-destruct. Subject Alpha suddenly launched itself forward, its movement almost too fast to track. But instead of attacking, it landed on a nearby console and began interfacing with the facility's systems through specialized appendages, another enhancement that had obviously exceeded its design parameters. It's trying to override the self-destruct sequence, Dr. Puddle realized with horror. It wants to preserve the facility and itself. 2 minutes to self-destruct. In that moment, Zixtel did something that would have been unthinkable mere hours ago. He stepped forward, his disintegrating armor screaming protests, and addressed the spider directly. "Your intelligence is evident," he said, his translator working overtime to convey the complex concepts. "You understand that even if you escape, the wider world is not ready for what you represent. The evolutionary arms race that created you must end here." Subject Alpha turned its multiple eyes toward him, displaying an understanding that sent chills through his crystalline form. Behind it, the other enhanced spiders went still, awaiting their leader's decision. 1 minute to self-destruct. Dr. Chen held up the dispersal device. "We can end this cleanly. All of us together. Or we can find out what happens when humanity's engineered apex predators escape into the wider galaxy. Your choice." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, Subject Alpha stepped away from the console. The other spiders followed suit, forming a circle around the group. 30 seconds to self-destruct. "Do it," Zixtel said firmly. "Let us face extinction together, as equals in this moment of evolution." Dr. Chen activated the device. The world dissolved into pure molecular chaos. When the emergency teams finally broke through to their level, they found an extraordinary scene. The hybrid spiders had been reduced to their base molecular components. Zixtal's armor was little more than crystalline dust. Mira X's particles had been scrambled into entirely new patterns. And in the center of it all, 4 figures, 3 human scientists and 1 humbled alien prince, lay unconscious but alive, protected by their own degraded molecular structures that had somehow achieved a new state of equilibrium with the chaos around them. Weeks later, in the Galactic Academy's lecture hall, Professor Chen stood before her class once again. This time, there was no laughter when she discussed Earth's biological capabilities. In the front row, Zixtel sat in a standard environment suit, his new crystal formations still growing back. But his posture displayed something new: respect. The greatest lesson in biology, Chen concluded, isn't about strength or technology. It's about adaptation. Earth didn't become a death world because it was powerful. It became powerful because everything on it, from the smallest spider to the dominant species, had to adapt or die. She smiled at her students, particularly the ones who had witnessed the incident. Remember, in the grand dance of evolution, it's not the biggest or strongest that survive. It's those who learn to respect and adapt to the dangers around them. Zixtel nodded slowly, his new crystalline structure catching the light. Like Earth's spiders, he too had adapted. And like humanity, he had learned that true strength comes not from domination, but from understanding. The galaxy would never look at Earth's primitive life forms the same way again.